Let me ask you something, and I want you to actually think about it, not react to it. Think about it. I was watching an atheist video recently. The topic was evil and suffering, the classic argument. The speaker was explaining how the existence of suffering is evidence against a good, all-powerful God. The usual examples came up: injustice, disease, innocent people suffering, children dying from horrible illnesses. The argument was passionate, emotional, and honestly, very convincing. But here's the thing. The author of the video is a natalist, someone who believes bringing new people into existence is perfectly fine, even good. So I left a question in the comments, not expecting an answer because, honestly, nobody ever wants to answer this question. I asked, who is more evil? A God that does nothing about suffering, or humans who keep bringing new people into a world where that suffering is guaranteed to exist? And the moment that question appears, something fascinating happens. All the logic disappears. All the moral outrage suddenly evaporates. All the skepticism, the critical thinking, and the question everything attitude, gone. Suddenly, people who present themselves as champions of rational thought start behaving exactly like the religious believers they argue against. They stop reasoning. They start defending. They start reaching for emotional justifications, cultural habits, instinct, anything they can grab to avoid the question. And I've seen this happen over and over and over again. It even happens with very well-known atheist figures. People who are brilliant when dismantling religious arguments suddenly become intellectually sloppy the moment reproduction is questioned. And it makes no sense. These are people who openly acknowledge that evil exists. They acknowledge that suffering exists. They spend entire lectures explaining how the world is full of pain, unfairness, and random cruelty. They debate theists about how a loving God would never allow such a brutal reality to exist. And then, in the same breath, they defend reproduction. That contradiction is staggering. Atheists and theists both look at this world. They both see the same agony, diseases, suffering, and the same children born into horrific circumstances. And yet, both groups continue supporting the very system that produces new victims of that suffering. They love to complain about a God doing nothing about pain, while actively creating new beings who will experience that pain. Think about how bizarre that is. It's especially shocking coming from people who pride themselves on being rational, on questioning assumptions, on following evidence wherever it leads. Because the moment antinatalism enters the conversation, those same people react the exact same way religious believers react when someone tells them God might not exist. They shut down and get defensive. They stop analyzing and start dismissing. I watched a video once where someone, without even realizing it, was basically explaining antinatalist ideas to an atheist. And do you know what the response was? Well, life is hard. That was it. That was the grand philosophical response. Life is hard. That's not logic or moral reasoning. That's a slogan people hide behind when they don't want to engage with the implications of what they already know is true. And what makes this even more disturbing is how these same people speak when they imagine confronting God. There's a famous moment in an interview with a well-known atheist. The host asked him, "If God turned out to be real, what would you say to him?" And his response was powerful, emotional, furious. He said something like, "Bone cancer in children? How dare you? Creating a world filled with injustice and suffering? How dare you?" And honestly, that outrage is completely understandable. But here's the part nobody wants to confront. That exact same question can be asked not to a God, but to humanity. Bone cancer in children, knowing it exists, how dare you keep bringing children into a world where that happens? Children born blind and deaf,
knowing that reality exists, how dare you keep creating lives that might endure that? Children born with brittle bone diseases where their bodies fracture constantly. Children born into starvation or severely deformed. How dare you continue feeding new lives into a system where those outcomes are not rare accidents, but predictable possibilities? And notice something. When suffering is used as an argument against God, it's treated as morally unacceptable, intolerable, evidence of cosmic injustice. But when that exact same suffering becomes part of human reproduction, suddenly it becomes just part of life. Suddenly it becomes, that's life. That's just how things are. Life is hard. The same people who demand moral consistency from a hypothetical deity abandon moral consistency when it applies to themselves. And that is the real contradiction nobody wants to talk about. Because if suffering is serious enough to disprove a loving God, then it should be serious enough to question whether we should keep creating new people who will inevitably experience that suffering. You can't condemn a creator for allowing suffering while participating in the continuation of that same suffering. You can't scream, "How dare you," at a God while refusing to ask yourself the exact same question. So I'll ask it again, and I want people to sit with it, not dismiss it, not laugh it off, not hide behind cliches. Just answer it honestly.
Who is more evil? A God that does nothing about suffering, or humans who knowingly keep creating new beings who will experience it? Because once that question is asked seriously, it becomes very difficult to pretend reproduction is morally neutral. And maybe that's why people avoid it. Not because it's irrational, but because it forces people to confront the possibility that the suffering they condemn in theory is the same suffering they help perpetuate in reality. If we care about logic, consistency, and morality as much as we claim to, that question shouldn't make us defensive. It should make us think.